Texas A&M fans, we are back. Carter Karels out there at Kyle Field joining yours truly, Joseph Hastings, after Texas A&M shutout victory over Samford on Saturday, their final home game of the regular season. Carter, take me through it, man. You know, this was a game that obviously A&M was expected to win, FCS opponent. You know, not going to really learn too much about the team from just in terms of offense, defense standpoint. But can you just tell me a little bit about your thoughts on the game and what you saw from A&M today?
A riveting game, man. Just wild, punch for punch.
Yep.
No, but mission accomplished for the Aggies. I mean, you went into this game wanting just a few things. One, build an early lead so you can rest the starters and not risk any injuries. And that's what they did. Probably even earlier than people thought. There was like 10 minutes left in the second quarter, and you looked up and no starter was on the field. Marcel Reed was out of the game. Yep, 2 thumbs up. That's great. Didn't have to risk anything there. And then I think you wanted to honor the seniors, right? And I think you did. I mean, we talked to Amari Daniels after the game, and he said that he didn't know that he was going to be kind of the featured back for the beginning of this game until right before kickoff. And, Amari Daniels has kind of been the odd one out in that running back rotation. It's really been, 4 guys, Owens and Smith and Morrow and of course Moss when he's healthy. So Daniels has kind of been that odd one out, and so to see him be rewarded and have over 100 rushing yards pretty easy in that first quarter, it's awesome. It's awesome. And even a guy like Preston Landis at the end getting a touchdown, that was a senior who was honored here today. 36 seniors in total, 23 on scholarship, 13 walk-ons. So you got to honor the seniors, and certainly a lot of those guys have been huge contributors in this 11-0 run for A&M. And, and then, again, no injuries. You pretty much ended the game by the second quarter, and you didn't have to sweat. You didn't have to worry. And, you get to kind of almost treat it like a bye week going up and leading up to this big showdown next Friday.
Carter, you and I like college football. I don't think we're watching too much Samford, though. So, this is kind of our first look. But it's still a little bit surprising that, they weren't really able to do anything on offense. It was tough to watch at times. Can you kind of take me a little bit through what you saw just from A&M's defense, just kind of the intensity level, knowing what happened last week against South Carolina, and even though the opponent isn't at that level, just kind of, a little bit more urgency coming out that first half.
I tweeted that Samford's offense depresses me. And then tears were trickling down my face with every 3 and out. Yeah. I mean, it was like, it got to a point where it's like, are they even going to get a first down? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, they finished with 77 yards. Brad Markwart, the SID for Texas A&M, one of their SIDs, he told us after the game, it's the first time A&M had held an opponent to less than 100 yards since North Texas in 1996, the year that I was born. So, I mean, that just goes to show you how pitiful of an offensive showing it was for Samford. And, I was annoyed with them. Like, why aren't you putting Ethan Fisher out there for field goal? Like, clearly the starter doesn't have it. He has the first one blocked with it too low, misses the second one. And it would have been really cool to see Ethan Fisher get that chance, former son of the former A&M head coach, Jimbo Fisher. And, Mike Elko had mentioned him after the game, said that, he was able to talk to him before and after the game, and they had a nice, couple moments there together, and had mentioned what the Fishers had meant to him, because Elko would not be the head coach at Texas A&M had it not been for Jimbo Fisher hiring him as a DC here and, bringing him here and kind of having that familiarity before he obviously went to Duke and then coming back to A&M. So that was a cool moment. But back to your original point, I mean, it wasn't even anything that A&M was doing really well. I don't think they had a sack today. I mean, did they even have a turnover? It was just one of those days where it's like every play was a 1-yard run, and, it was like, oh, man, they might not get a first down. They had the hook and ladder, which is pretty cool.
They ran that twice, back to back. Like, I thought it was pretty cool to see that, but why are you running that? That's something you kind of sprinkle in. I thought they would do a little bit more, some of that trick plays. It's kind of what you want to see when you're kind of up against a Goliath. You want to test out some of those plays, and they kept it, honestly, fairly, conservative from a play calling standpoint. It was tough to watch throughout the game.
Yeah.
And to your point, they, Texas A&M actually, they dominated every single statistical category in this game, but they lost the turnover battle 2-0, which was interesting. I know something that fans are going to talk about is just the special teams unit. Can you take me through that? The missed field goal. Just kind of where you think Texas A&M is at right now from a special team standpoint.
Well, I've said this for most of the season, but you look at offense and defense for A&M. It's not really a glaring weakness. You go position by position. There's not really like you could maybe say, okay, do they have a first round pick at tight end? Like, no, but they're still pretty good at that position. Nate Borkert's been solid. Like, you go all around that. There's not a glaring weakness. Kicker, though, that's a glaring weakness for this team. And when you're going on a playoff run and you're playing some really dang good teams and the margin for error is slim and you got to finish drives, you got to be good in the red zone, et cetera, those field goals could really matter. They may not matter against Samford. They may not matter against South Carolina, but they could matter against Ohio State. They could matter against Georgia. And it gives you a reason for concern. And, we asked Mike Elko about it early this week, and I don't know if he was trying to withhold the truth or if things changed later in the week for them, but he initially said that Randy Bond was the guy. He said, hey, he's the starter, all this. Randy Bond had been pretty bad for most of the season. He started off okay, had a nice, stretch, or actually he kind of struggled at start. Then he kind of rebounded and did okay for a few games. And then last, South Carolina game goes 1 of 3, misses a 24-yarder. And, wasn't the kicker today. It was Jared Zirkle, and he misses his first field goal. I think it was, 34, 36 yards. It was in the 30s there. Gave me reason for concern. Bond kicks it out of bounds. You're just like, man, okay. But to Zirkle's credit, he made a couple field goals, bounced back well. Does it do enough for him to keep that job? Is it a ride the hot hand situation? Now they've benched Bond. It's hard to get that confidence back, and so much of it's a mental game. So we're going to see how it plays out. And I just see Mike here saying, "Hey, 11-0 now." Yeah. Absolutely. Like, I'm just talking about nitpicks. This team is awesome. There's so many positive things to say. And again, every position, offense, defense, at least good, and many of them great. It's just the one thing that may keep this team from going all the way. It could end up being their kicker, and they got to figure it out. And maybe this is the game where they kind of figured it out with Zirkle. And hey, I remember watching him in preseason camp. He had a 55-yarder in front of me. He had a 59-yarder as a junior in high school at Tivy, where Johnny Manziel went to. So, he's got the leg, but, this is his 5th year. He hasn't really, gotten a starting job and held on to it. So he still has a lot to prove, and we're just going to see how it plays out. But it's the one thing that gives you a little caution with this team.
Yeah, it was the one thing in our, in our game thread on GigEm 24/7 where as soon as that missed field goal happened, that's when all the comments started to come in. Everything was kind of just like,
Chubbs loves Randy Bond. Yeah.
Definitely. And yes, Connie's mentioning the penalties here from Texas A&M as well. I mean, that's something that's kind of been a common theme throughout the season. It had 5 penalties. That was another area where Samford technically, beat them. They had 3 penalties to Texas A&M's 5. Carter, let's just wrap up, put a bow on this game here before we talk a little bit about Texas. Anything from the post-game press conference of Mike Elko and the players, or any special moments that you saw that you wanted to kind of highlight, before we move on to Texas, and also any injury updates as well?
Yeah, some quick housekeeping. EJ Smith after the game, obviously not suited up for the game today. People kind of wondering what his status is. He was noticeably limping to the point where it made you wonder, is he going to play next week? I don't know. Can't speculate too much on what it is or how severe it is, but definitely a noticeable limp. And, sometimes it's hard to play the next week if you're struggling to walk, so didn't have a brace on or anything like that. Wasn't using crutches. So, that's good. We'll see what happens there. We weren't able to ask Elko about it after the game, but we'll make sure to ask it Monday. Craver and Owens were two guys that, going in this game, it was kind of like might be a little banged up from the previous game, but you don't have to play them if you don't need to. So both of those guys suited up. They both warmed up, but they didn't play in the game today, at least from what I saw. Maybe they're in for a game or a play or two, but don't believe they were in today. And again, I think that's just kind of a precautionary thing. Elko said earlier this week that they're doing fine. Moss also did not suit up. I think he'll be he's on the mend. He's been out of that boot for a couple weeks now. Could he play against Texas? It could be like a Ruben Owens situation last year where Owens was hurt all year and then comes in and has a limited role against Texas and then plays a little bit more in the bowl game. Could that be the case with Moss? You'd love to see him kind of get his feet wet before this big run starts to happen with the SEC championship game and the playoff looming. You wouldn't love to throw him in cold in a huge game, although I'm sure he'd be able to handle it well. It'd be good to get kind of that rust off and get the offense oriented around him again. And so those are kind of the big ones. Scooby Williams also did not play or suit up today. Bryce Anderson obviously expected to redshirt. He did not play either. As far as the special moments, I was really struck pregame. Albert Regis, when he came out onto the field, was holding his newborn baby in his hands. I was nervous for him. I was like, dude, I would be tripping in that situation. Like I couldn't jog with holding the baby in my hands. So I was like kind of nervous, but he handled it well, and it was cool to see him, and his fiance out there. He's meant a lot to this team and has had a huge year, and that was just a cool moment to watch. But I mentioned 23 scholarship players were recognized on the field before the game. Only 3 of them are eligible to come back next year. Torian York, Casey Concepcion, and then Bryce Anderson, who's expected to redshirt and then have that next season of eligibility. Ask Elko earlier this week about that. If someone walks on senior day, does that mean that they're, going like Torian York, Casey Concepcion? Does this mean they're going to the NFL? He said no, that those conversations won't happen until after the season. And that, he pointed to last year, there were guys that walked on senior day. Demetrius Crownover being one of them. I remember Randy Bond, and I think maybe Trey Zune and another guy walked on senior day who ended up coming back. So it's not necessarily mean that they'll leave. You'd probably think that Casey Concepcion's headed to the NFL. He's shooting up draft boards. He's potentially a first-round pick. York, maybe there's more of a decision there. Thought it was interesting that Jace Basanis didn't walk today. That means that he probably thinks that he's coming back. So that's good news for the Aggies. But, 20 guys guaranteed to not come back. Demetrius Crownover, because he walked last year, didn't walk this year. So that's actually 21 guys that are not coming back, and many of them are starters. So a class that's been really meaningful for A&M. And you think about where they started. A 2022 season was the worst A&M season in many, many years. And they went through a coaching change. They went through 7-6 season in 2023. There were a lot of lows before these highs, and so a really cool story for them to kind of rags to riches. This, really rough at the beginning and really great now. And some of these guys are also transfers, so guys like Tyler Onyedem weren't here for that whole ride, but certainly a guy like him has added a lot to this team. Will Lee, another big transfer. Cassius Howe, a lot of transfers in that group too that have been very impactful. So, a special group, and it'll be a hard one to replace.
Absolutely. Very well said. Appreciate everything, all your insight there, and everybody for tuning in. The likes, the comments, we greatly appreciate, and we would love a subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, and following our Twitter and Facebook pages. Carter, let's move on to Texas real quickly. We're going to talk a little bit more about them throughout the week. Friday night game, very anticipated one. Texas is currently winning 14-6 over Arkansas at home right now in the first quarter. Expected to win that game. Can you just take me through your initial thoughts on this one? It's a game we've kind of been looking forward to for a while now, especially after A&M got over that 3-game road stretch. That concluded with the Missouri win earlier this month. Can you take me through just your early thoughts on this game?
Well, another A&M Texas game with massive, massive stakes. For A&M, you win the game, you're in the SEC championship game. You lose, the only way you can make the SEC championship game is if Auburn beats Bama and Mississippi State beats Ole Miss. And probably not happen. Auburn, I don't know what the score is now, but Auburn was losing to Mercer today. So I don't know if they're going to beat Bama. You never know in the Iron Bowl, but A&M probably going to need to beat Texas to make the SEC championship game. For Texas, could they still make the playoff? A win over A&M, it would give them a win over A&M. It'd give them a win over Vanderbilt. And I'm missing. There's one other ranked win that they have that I can't remember off the top of my head, but they'd have, I believe, 3 ranked wins.
They beat Oklahoma.
Yeah, Oklahoma. And then you've got losses to Georgia. The big loss to Georgia, but it was at Georgia. A small loss against Ohio State. A good loss. Bad loss at Florida.
That's the Florida game is the one that's coming back to haunt them. If when it's all said and done. I mean, they're in a position now where they have beaten Florida, and your losses are at Ohio State, at Georgia, against Texas A&M. If Texas A&M was to win next week, they could potentially. I know it'd be a tough case, but 9-3 and losing to those 3 teams, that they would have been in a better spot. Now it's kind of like, even if they do beat Texas A&M, they're in a tough spot because of that Florida loss.
Yeah, it might be something where they've got to win by double digits. It might be something where they need Miami or somebody to lose, or whomever it is in front of them. They're at 17 right now. Maybe they jump to 16, 15 this week. So they'll need help. But, this committee loves brands. They supposedly are prioritizing strength of record and strength of schedule more, big wins more. I don't know. I'm not making the case for them. I'm just saying I could see it being a thing. And no matter what, there's at least going to be that belief for them adding to the stakes of this game. And so another big high stakes game between these two teams. Definitely a different game than what many expected going into the season. I remember Texas was a 10-point favorite going into this season over A&M, and I'd imagine A&M is favored maybe by like a touchdown. Who knows what the line will be in this game? But yeah, 2 seasons that have gone way differently than what a lot of people thought. I know Steve Sarkisian pushed back when he got that question earlier this week about them underachieving relative to their expectations, but they have. I mean, maybe not underachieving, but maybe falling below expectations, right? So they haven't been what was panned out to be, but they certainly still have the talent to win a game against A&M. So a big one for A&M, and it just feels like every game from here on out is going to be the biggest game of the season. Next week, biggest game of the year. Everything's on the line.
Yeah.
The week after that, SEC championship game, you might have a bye on the line in that game. And even still, if you beat Texas next week and you lose by a little in the SEC championship game, you could still lock up a bye at 12-1. So a lot of things that could unfold here over the next couple of weeks. And obviously you got the big playoff run, but starts next Friday. You win that game, and man, you're 12-0 for the first time, and since 1992. You're feeling great about yourself. You've done everything that you could have wanted to do this year. You beat Notre Dame. First top 10 road win since like 1978. First win at Baton Rouge since like 1994. First, undefeated 7-0, 8-0 start since 92, and then beating Texas and Austin. It's been a while since they've done that. So, it's just a year of milestones, benchmarks, things, and it would be like just that next level of capping it all off. So a lot on the line for A&M, and next week could make it really cap off a special season.
Yeah, the first thing that was going through my mind when you were just saying what you said about just the history of the season is Coach Oko, because it seems like every time he's been asked about the history of this A&M program, he's like, we're focused on this year and what we're accomplishing this season. And what they've accomplished this season is nothing short of incredible, stellar, all the adjectives that you can use, all the superlatives that you can add for this season. They've done it. And like you said, Friday. I mean, it's Friday against Texas. And then you're looking at potentially 12. You're looking at 12-0, and then the SEC championship berth, and then like you said, a playoff bye on the line. Very exciting times here. Carter, is there anything that you wanted to add to wrap everything up here, just about A&M, the program, where things are at, that you wanted to conclude with?
Well, Black Friday is going to be weird to watch A&M play Texas on that day. It's so used to growing up watching that game on Thanksgiving and I think maybe on some Saturdays as well. But Black Friday has been the new thing that everyone's talking about. I still don't fully buy into Friday being better. I would have thought that Saturday would be okay. I know you don't want to compete with the NFL on Thursday, but Saturday's still fine. But I think they want that standalone primetime spot. So that'll be a different thing. And I think maybe there might be some relief, some not as much pressure involved, because last year, not only did they have an SEC championship game, you lose, you win or you die situation, but it was also the first game with the rivalry back, and you were at home, and it just kind of felt like there was so much talk about the game coming back and the SEC championship game being on the line. There was so much pressure in that game. Now it's like, hey, this isn't the first game since it came back. And even if you lose this game, you're still in the playoff. Even if it goes horribly wrong, you're still fine. And so I think maybe that will help this team, knowing that, like, hey, you can play somewhat relaxed. Like, you don't have to, like, worry that this is going to end your season like last time. Mm-hmm. Not saying that they need to play relaxed, but I'm just saying, like, it might be a different vibe compared to last time. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, and certainly think they'll be motivated coming off that loss last year to avenge that.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Can't wait. I'm new to the Texas A&M beat, first Texas game. Very excited about that. Carter, thank you for joining us. Last time in the regular season at Kyle Field there on the field. Look forward to seeing you next week in Austin. And thank you to everyone once again who tuned in, who liked, who subscribed. Jill says, enjoying the moment. Go Aggies. Yes, I appreciate everyone who tuned in, and looking forward to going back live with you, Carter, on Friday, and to seeing everybody then too. For GigEm 24/7, signing off for Carter Karels and Joseph Hastings. Greatly appreciate everyone who tuned in today.